Hello and welcome to another SvelteKit tutorial video, and this one is gonna get a little bit longer again because we have much to do. We want to do a image upload. So for our album we want to add images, and then we're gonna store them in our SQLite database and later on create an API so we can load it from our page and display it. If a small notice ahead, I'm storing the image in the SQLite database we're also using for every other data. This is totally fine for a small application or medium-sized where you have a few hundred users or something like that. But at some point it doesn't make sense to store binary data like files in a database like that. You may want to look for other solutions, like there are block storages in the cloud or even dedicated image servers. I even found this self-hosted option here, Optimize, that automatically can compress and also optimize images. So you can say, I want that image, but this is a small phone. I want it in this size, and for the 4K screen user, this gets I want it in a big size. So you can save bandwidth. I think there are also alternatives to this one, but you might want to check this out. So yeah, but let's go ahead, and I think we want to start with adding the upload input here on the album page. So let's go ahead in the code, and this is the page server file. And if we go down here, this is below this update album name form. We just add a form, I guess. And this form, or let's put also a header above it so we know what this is. And we're gonna put a hidden input of the album ID. So we want to use the album ID to save this image. So we have to put a hidden in there with the loaded album ID. And the next item is, of course, the input. And this is just a small file input, the name, of course, and except we only want images. We can basically also do that instead, accept any image. And then, yeah, the user in the file picker only sees images. And we, of course, need a button. So let's add a button here. And upsala, I missed something. Upload image button /div. And gonna disable Copilot for this tutorial. And yeah, basically we have now this form and can use it, but I think it's not nice that we don't see the image when we selected it. So let's maybe do a small preview. And so let's first go here and create a small variable that stores the uploaded image here with the type string. And then we're gonna do a small function that's called when we fill the input field, and we can get the image with event.target and then not value, but it's because it's a type file input, we can access files, and then we have to go to the first one with the index 0 because we didn't set it, but basically inputs could also handle multiple. If we would set it, then it would work, but then we can access every single of them. And let's return if there's nothing, so TypeScript will be happy. And in the end we can set our variable, and this is here the trick. We can use url.createObject URL for an image, and that returns us the string here in our variable, and this string we can use in an image source. So let's go here, and we want to put an image in here. So if uploaded image, we can say image source is this variable, have a max width and an empty alt tag, and we have to say now actually on change call our function. And now if I upload it again, it should preview it. Great. But one small thing that's still not great, I can already click this button if I haven't selected a file. So a small change we can still do is we can set a disabled state on this button as long as there's nothing uploaded. So disabled equals when there's no uploaded image, so then it's true, or null. And now this is disabled, can't click it, but when I upload something, I can click it. So yeah, great. I think I haven't actually put any in the form, so let's say method post. And another really important thing here we need to do is we need to set an enc type. So here it's already recommended multi-part form data, and if we hover over this, it says here if we use this, the first one is the normal one where no attribute value is specified, but if we want to do an input with file, we need to set multi-part form data. Otherwise, we wouldn't get the file content in our backend handler. We only would get the file name, and we don't want that. We want the whole file to be actually submitted with the form. So don't forget to put that here. And yeah, that's it for the front end stuff. So now let's jump back to the backend. So in the backend, we need to implement a form handler here in the page server function. And we always already had here the update album title function, but we called this one, where's the button here, update album image. So we have to define a new method. And I think I should disable Copilot. And in here, what we do here, we can again check if the user is actually authorized. We always need to do that. And then we can just get our form data, and we can then extract the album ID thing. So again, we have this hidden album ID value here because we want to store the image related to this album and not to every album. So we get it first as a string, then we parse it. And then the interesting part is how we can get the file. And that's pretty easy. We can do album image equals data.get album image and then call value of, and this is of the type file. And let's just log everything in here and test it out, I guess. So, and upload, and if we look into the logs, voila, we get, let's make it smaller. So this is our image. This is basically of type blob, and we can get the name of it, get the MIME type, image JPEG, the size, and even last modified. So that's Unix timestamp of like in your file explorer, you always get a change date of your file, so you can sort by it. And we also get it from this file, and we should store it if we want to preserve that value. Otherwise, if you download it again and you can't put or download it anymore, it gets set to, I don't know, maybe the first Unix timestamp. So I like to store it and extract it. And yeah, having this done, we now need to insert it into the database, or firsthand create our database table. So in our database file, we can add the table. So I want to store it in its own table. I don't want to alter the album table, and because I want to preserve it's from a sample database, so I want to preserve the original tables. So I added my own album images table, and primary key is just the album ID. So each album can only have one image in here. And we store the name, MIME type, last modified, size, and basically the image itself as a blob. And we add a foreign key, so we preserve referential integrity. And now we have to actually call it on database on start. So let's restart our server one time. And done. Let's look if it worked. So this is Beekeeper Studio. That's the tool I like to use to check my SQLite files. And I refreshed it, and we have this album images table. Great. So yeah, that's how we wanted it. And now having that, we need to make a function that actually loads, or this actually saves our uploaded image. So gonna create a function here, and it gets the album ID and the image itself. And I'm gonna paste a big SQL statement, and this one does not only insert, but it also updates if there is already a record with the primary key there. So basically, we only call this function, and if there's no image for this album, we create one. If there already is one, we just override it. And we do that by just a plain insert first. We just insert all the values, and then we say on conflict, and we say which is the primary key column we want to check if there's a conflict. So it's the album ID. And then we do an update and set all the columns to excluded.column name. And we then in the end as well do a where on the album ID. Yeah, this works great. And so we prepare the statement, and then we need to run the statement, of course. And so we put in the album ID from our parameter file name. We can just get it from image.name, MIME type from image.type, last modified as well, size, and data. So this SQLite library, that's better SQLite 3, it only knows how to handle buffers. And buffers is a Node or JavaScript type, and that's not exactly the same as this file type. So we need to first convert it, but this is fairly easy. We need to get an array buffer from the image with image.array buffer, and afterwards, so we need a normal buffer, not an array buffer. We can just get the buffer from array buffer. And now we have this buffer, and we're gonna use it as this data, as our blob column input, basically. And yeah, that's the merge album image function. And now we can actually call it, I guess, in here. So merge album image, import album ID, and what's the file? It's album image. Great. So let's test this out. We're gonna go to our album here and upload the cover, upload image. So we can still not see anything here, but let's go to the database and refresh. And as you can see here, we actually have a row, so the insert worked. And these are the values. And interestingly, the blob is just random characters. So this now worked great. And for the last part, we're gonna load the value again. So we do that by telling the front end here that there is actually a file that it can load. And we're gonna get a return URL. And so we go to our function here in the database that loads the page load function. Here we return this album, and the album is returned from get album by ID, and this function lets us just add a join. So we're gonna join or left join because we want it still to work if an album has no image. So left join would still return something if there's no image in the database. And we join on the album ID, and basically we get the image name. And now we have to extend the type. So image name, it's optional, of type string. And yeah, we tell the front end by that it can load an image. And so we can go into the front end, and there we can go ahead and create get first the image, so it's in the data. And so let's say maybe below here we say if we have an image, if data album image name, we call this endpoint. We still of course need to create, but here we just pass the image name. So yeah, it's cached from my app where I tested it. So yeah, I now deleted the cache, and now I get an actual 404. So yeah, this was just from testing from before. And so what we need to do now is actually create this endpoint. And for that, I think it's best to just create one in the API album ID. So we'd want the image from this album ID, create a new folder, and say image, and again a new folder. Is it image name? Okay. From our storage point of view, we can get it already with the primary key album ID, but I thought it would be kind of stupid if we pass. So we want the end of the route to be like this with the actual file name. So when the user downloads the image, then he gets this as a the name, the file name he wants to download it to. So I want the file name to be the end of the path. So I added the ID of the and the file name. I hope this makes sense. And so let's create the server.ts in here. And this is a get handler this time. So we want to load from the server, so that's why it's a get resource. And let's first check if we have an album, and then check if it's actually an integer, the stuff we did all the time before in the tutorials. And then we need to load the image. So that's again a database function. So let's jump back into the database and just below here. And this is a fairly quick one because we just query all the stuff we have in our table. And we pass the album ID and the file name. Again, it would be enough to just query by the album ID, but I thought, if the user messes around with the URL and changes the file name, the last path of our API endpoint, then he would get the same image under a different name. I think that's not really doesn't make any sense. So I added this last part here. So if he messes with the file name, he gets a 404 because there is no file in our database with this name for this album. And so now we need to return it. There's still one thing we need to do. So this is a buffer as we stored it in the database, as you remember. And we're gonna need to convert this buffer to a JavaScript blob. And we can just do it by calling new blob. And then we pass an array of the raw data of the buffer. And we have to tell the MIME type. And of course, we stored that, so we can just point to it. And in the end, return the image. And we still need to make this album image type. So let me copy it over. It's just this, and the data is a blob. And let's go back and import it here. So now it doesn't, it's happy. So back in our API handler, we can then say, 1 second, we can call this function. So we say our image is get album image with both the parameters. And if there's nothing returned, we can just say image not found 404. And then we need to set actually some response headers. So let's start off. First one is the content type. So this should be the MIME type of the image. So the browser knows how to handle it. And content length is the size. We have stored this as well. So we say size to string. Last modified is the date when the image was the file last changed. We also extracted that from the image and stored in the database. And we call new date last modified to UTC string on it. And in the end, I think it makes sense to cache stuff like images because there are more data than just a small JSON of the album info. And who cares if it's updated, then the user does not immediately get the new album image. So I think in my case it makes sense to cache it for this time here 600 seconds. And in the end we need to return the content, and this is the image itself, so the blob. And we just say new response. This is also from I think it's a Node response from the fetch API, and pass the image data. And now it works. Great. So that's already it. We can look at this request here. And we see content type, and last modified is here also. It's already cached, so it's instantly from memory cache, so I can load it again. And great. And let's see if the update also works. So I have a white version of it, upload. That's the cache part. So now I need to empty cache. But in the database it's updated. We can always go back again. Have to clear the cache. So that's basically it. That's how we can upload images, store them in the database, and afterwards load them. I hope you liked the tutorial. If you have any feedback or maybe some topics I should do a video about, make sure to put them in the comments. Also check out my playlist with other SvelteKit tutorials, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.